I'm glad to be able to talk to this gentleman because once again we're getting back to this announcement right across page one of the Post today and continued. I think it's quite extensively covered in the inside pages as well. But basically they're talking about these three ships. It's the Princess Cruises vessels, Sun Princess, Sea Princess, Dawn Princess. They're all about the same, 160 metres long, just under 80,000 plus tonnes. And they're getting underway. These visits are getting underway in as early as June. Now, the point they're making in this article is that it's going to be a very significant boost to the economy of the CBD. They're talking $8 million. Now, I don't know if we're talking about an extra 8 because there was already a contribution when they were anchored out of Yorkies anyway. But on rough days, of course, a lot less number got off those ships to come into the city. So certainly that won't be the case once they're at the terminal itself. They're anchored right at the end of Abbott Street, so that'll be certainly a big step forward. But the question I was really pondering this morning was, will it be enough of a fillip to actually trigger a recovery of the CBD? And by recovery, I'm talking about the number of empty shops in town. The former Mayor Ron Davis went around it's probably 7 or 8 years ago now. I can't remember how long back it was. But he came up with a staggering figure. I think it was about 150 shops that were empty in the city. And everyone suddenly thought that can't be true. But it was. I mean, a whole lot of shops looked like they're actually operational till you stick your nose up to the window and you realise there's nothing inside. Nothing's going on. There's quite a lot of those. And he was doing only ground floor as well. Now, when you walk down to the end of Abbott Street, particularly at night, you'll notice how many shops are basically closed and have been for a long time. You'll smell them. They're full of vermin. The fact that there's no lights means it attracts homeless people as well. You've just got an awful situation in some of the blocks of the CBD. Will this be enough to instigate a recovery of some sort? I don't know. I put a call through to Bill Cummings, the renowned Cairns economist, and he's with me on the line. Hello, Bill.
Good morning, John.
You'd have to be happy with that news, getting the extra ships in, 17 extra visits a year.
Yes, most definitely, John. It's certainly an advance because one of the things that's much more efficient for everybody, if the ships come into the port rather than stand off Yorkeys Knob, some of the work we've done has indicated that the inefficiency costs of standing off Yorkeys Knob is something like $70 a passenger, and that's because of all the transfers, the time wasted, bus fares, and the crew not being able to come ashore, the ships having to stay at sea with a lot of the crew still in operation, etc. And so it's much more efficient if they can come into the port. And of course, what we're seeing, they've done the simulation modelling now to get some of those ships in that were on the margin. I think in relation to 2017, according to the Ports North schedule, it'll mean that 10 out of the 34 that were listed at that stage would get into the port. That still leaves about 24 that are still having to sit off the coast.
Now, Bill, rather than go back over the whole sad history of what's happened in the CBD, I mean to say when Cairns Central came to town, that was the trigger for the closing down of a lot of shops in the CBD. Some have been filled since and some have remained empty for a hell of a long time. This sort of, what would you call it, burst of additional spending, if you like. They're talking about $8 million. I don't know if that's a net figure or what, but talk to me about its potential to stimulate more activity in the CBD.
John, the figure over the 17 cruise ship visits, the figure of 8 million is probably about right. It's about 500,000 a cruise ship visit. I don't have the exact breakup in relation to Cairns as far as where that spending goes, but some of it, of course, would be on port dues and the costs of coming into the port. But the larger part is spent on excursions and on retail. So I don't have any precise breakup for what typical spending is in Cairns, but we had a look at some figures that were from the Caribbean actually, where it's cruise ship visits and that sort of thing, and over there, about 23% was going to shore excursions. I suspect that in Cairns it would be higher than that. But pretty much the rest was retail, and some of the items, some of the leading items in that retail spending was the highest single item. In fact, was jewellery and that type of thing, and clothing, food and beverage, local crafts 7%, alcohol, perfumes, taxis and transport. So there's a substantial part of that, which would be generated in mainly in the CBD.
All right. Now, what are the prospects of some of those boarded up shops opening up again, do you think, Bill?
Well, John, it's a positive. It's only 3 cruise ships, on a number of visits over the years. It will be helpful. Probably you could say it'll make a marginal impact, those cruise ships. But of course, there's a lot of other cruise ships coming into the port, and the total impact of the cruise ships on the CBD, particularly the ones that can get into the port, will be much higher than that.
Now, Bill, and you've watched this over the years. You know about Ron Davis's survey some years ago that showed just how many shops had closed down in the CBD, were fundamentally boarded up.
Yes.
What do you think, Bill, is the answer to that? I mean, what would stimulate a revival to such an extent that we'd see a significant number of those closed shops opening up again?
Right. Well, of course, John, what's happened over the years, there's been a redistribution of the shopping into those bigger shopping centres, not just Cairns Central, but also into the major suburban shopping centres and away from the old CBD. There used to be the Golden Block in the city that was where a lot of the retail spending took place for the city. Now that's changed over the years, and a lot of the residential spending has moved elsewhere. Although there is still people coming into the city and spending. And particularly at night time, entertainment, that sort of thing, but also coming in for other services, and they'll spend something. However, a large part of the spending in the CBD these days it does come from tourism, and you've just got to walk around town and see the composition of the shopping, and of course, we suffered a downturn in tourism during after 2008, and we've got it picking up again, and it'll take a further substantial lift in tourism to fill a lot of those shops, and of course, improving the facilities in the city. The lagoon, all that sort of thing that encourages people to come back into the city helps. But I think as far as the retail in the city, a lot will depend on tourism. The other factor is from pedestrian counts and that sort of things that we've done over the years has been the office people working in the city. And of course, we've also had a significant amount of empty office space in the city. Yeah. But as the city grows, we can expect that inner city, that CBD employment, to increase. And of course, also in the paper today, of course, is the expansion of the CQU campus that brings students who are essentially visitors, a lot of them, into the city. And hopefully, I believe that we will also see a city campus come in with James Cook University. Yeah,
that is exciting. Don't go away. I'm a bit confused with your mathematics. Now, it says here in this article on these ships coming into the port, a total of 17 calls to Yorkeys Knob between September this year and September next year will transfer to Cairns. How many did you say that left out at Yorkeys?
John, it left 24. Actually, there's on the listings of ships going to Yorkeys Knob, those 3 ships accounted for 10, So there's a disparity there of 7, and I think it could be that they've increased the number of visits.
I'll find out in a minute anyway, because I'm talking
as
with
part of that process. But those 3 ships were downlisted as 10, and there was another 24 listed.
Okay, those other 24, they're other companies, are they?
Yes. Look, I'm not absolutely certain of the composition in relation to the different companies, but most of those are larger ships. I noticed 1 or 2 that are in that more marginal category that the Princess class was in.
All right, I think I'm getting a handle on all of this. Bill, great to talk to you, and thank you once again.
Good, John.
He's the renowned Cairns economist, Bill Cummings, with the time coming up to 17 to 11.